Hello and welcome to A Medium's World. I am so grateful to have each and every one of you here. I am Bonnie Worth, and yes, I am a medium. I think what I love most about being about doing this work or being a medium really is about the diverse amount of ways that we can be of service to other people. There isn't a cookie cutter kind of scenario or that really kind of, yeah, I would say like a scenario or an aspect about us that places us in one specific way of being of service. That as mediums, we are incredibly diverse and we really can be multi-talented in terms of not only our communication with the other side, with those loved ones who we've lost, also in terms of guides and angels and higher dimensional beings, as well as the nature spirits. Again, where many, and I believe not just many, but all mediums are what I always refer to as being the compassionate healers. We have just a real call deep inside of us to be able to help alleviate what is the pain or suffering of other people through these connections and through our healing sessions that we offer. So this is just really, we can express it in many different ways, and of course, many teachings. So everything, in terms of what can be are the emotions, can be in terms of business, it can be in terms of healing, even energetic healing, as well as receiving readings for future, even past life stuff. We've got all kinds of things that we have access to. That's why I always, truly always say and believe truly that being a medium is the only modality we really do require, because we have access to this portal of great connections and experiences to all these realms of consciousness that can help in healing, help in healing people, help in really making a positive difference in someone's life. And so I love that. I love all the different ways, as the guest speakers are coming in, that they're showing up in the world in their diversity, their unique style, and the expression of what is most aligned and where they feel most called to serve. So I want to just take a moment here before we really move into tonight and take a moment just to drop into our heart space here and into connection and with each other. So I'm going to invite you, as I do every evening, to just take a moment to close your eyes and place your hand on your heart, bringing us all into a presence with our own self, presence with our own body, presence with our own life. By simply just placing a hand on the heart, we begin to feel ourselves. And so as you begin to fall into this space, just allowing your inhale and your exhale to be taking you deeper and deeper into your heart space, deeper and deeper into this moment. Just feeling this subtle, this calm, this invitation to go deeper and deeper beyond the chaos of the outside world and all the happenings, all of the distractions, all of the doing, the coming and going, the have to, the should to, I need to a space where you simply just get to be, to slow down, to fall into your own self, even if only for a few moments, a few breaths. And as you focus on your inhale and your exhale, just imagine that the earth is wrapping you around with love and light, wrapping, and you are wrapping the earth with love and light. That the earth and you, here in this very human physical form, are connected for purpose. And now imagine, feel, or intend that You have light that is reaching up to the heavens, and you are wrapping your light around the heavens, and the heavens are wrapping you in light, in love. For the softening of suffering, for comfort, for protection, for creating hope. And that in this space, you feel a connection to the source that is nourishing, a source that is liberating, breaking the grip of whatever you've been dealing with, whatever challenge have been yours, and instead entering into a present time, into this moment where you can breathe in goodness, the goodness of grace, the goodness of light. Just allow your breath and this light to nourish you, to give to you, for you to be held, cared for. Just allow the energies of heaven and earth to blend into one. Breathe into it, immerse yourself in it. Rest here. Here in the present moment. Grounded, held, and open to the sacred space that we share here tonight. And it is through this sacred space, this connection of heart to heart, that we ask for not only everyone attending this event or even listening later, be blessed with whatever it is that they are praying for, whatever it is that they need or require for their lives. Trust. Calm, peace, health, abundance, prosperity, love. Whatever it is in their highest asking, that they be blessed and we be blessed. And that through our conversation tonight, that we are open to talk freely, openly, liberated, to share in wisdom and understanding, in appreciation for differences, and in appreciation of our own light and our own love. And so for this and so much more, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Amen, amen, amen. I am the light I am. I just love how that feels. Oh my gosh. All right. So we are welcoming to the conversation tonight, Marcie Mazurenko. Now, Marcie is a beautiful light. She has all kinds of modalities that she's taken training in, everything from, of course, being a medium and doing readings to doing she reads the Akashic Records. She channels from the divine. She's a healer, and her repertoire of services, as I said, really represents the diversity for mediums everywhere. And I'm really excited to have Marcie here tonight as an energy healer and an intuitive coach. Marcie, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. It's so good to be sitting with you again. It seems like it has been lifetimes since we've had the opportunity to share in some time together.
It's been too long for sure.
Right? Oh my gosh, most definitely. Well, I'm really glad that you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule and to be a part of these conversations. I would just love for you to kind of open up and just share with everyone a little bit about your personal experiences with the spirit world. When did you really start recognizing your connection to the other side? What happened, or how did they wake you up to them?
Well, I think looking back in retrospect, of course, I probably have always had experiences. So knowing what I know now, I had a lot of invisible friends when I was growing up. I actually taught them in my basement. I had a classroom where I taught my invisible friends. And we often went on field trips into the woods to discover things and explore. And so, that along with, a lot of ringing in the ears, those are all childhood experiences that I had, but I didn't, of course, at that time understand or know what they were. So through kind of that part of my life, there was a lot of loss when I was in my, growing up as a child and into adulthood. And so I lost a lot of faith in everything, including a higher power, including divine. And so I think that shut down any gifts or any interaction that I could receive with spirit. So it wasn't until fast forward many years that I started looking into energy healing. And that was after my own loss. And so, in 2010, my mom passed away after a very sudden and short battle with liver disease. And 11 months later, my dad passed away. And I fell into a really, really deep depression. And I stayed there for a really long time. And it wasn't until I had, one of those aha moments, again, as many of us have, thanks to my lovely grandmother. And I won't get into that story, but it put me on this path of discovering things. And one of those things was energy healing. And when I started doing energy healing, I realized that there were some things going on when I was starting to work with people, to work with clients. And I also started to, explore a few more things. And as I did, I did some exchanges. So I had an Akashic record reading done for me, and I exchanged for bioenergy healing. And in that exchange, or in that reading, of course, the Akashic record reader was like, you're a medium, right? And I was like, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think I am. And she said, no, you're definitely a medium. And so I had subsequent visits with her and readings from her. And she would say, no, there's a lot of spirit here, like here right now, they're trying to connect with you. And so that validation, I guess, or that, repeated invitation really made me start to look at, okay, what is going on and what do these interactions mean? And so I did start to have more of that interaction, more of those visits from spirit, and started very slowly, admittedly, to understand what that all meant.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? I think that every medium, we all go, I mean, there are the exceptions for the few, but the vast majority of mediums go into that resistance. It's like, I am not doing this. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm definitely not a medium. Like, it's almost this whole state of denial. But as I've shared that it's a part of our personality. So it's a part of us that we're actually denying of our own self. And so, we all can do that for a short period of time until, of course, something happens where the invitation and the pushes, seem to get louder, and maybe the spirit world gets a little noisier too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So amazing how it all unfolds. And here too, I spoke the other night about how we have, child onset abilities, but very often, even though there are experiences there, and a lot of mediums can look back and say, I really begin to recognize the signs now, maybe not even realizing at the moment. I think sometimes our experiences are so normalized for us, we don't even realize that they're out of the normal in comparison to what other people are going through, right? So it is, it takes a while, even as we mature and come into, I think, our readiness, as after having had some lived experiences, where in creating our bias, that we become more positioned to then be of service. So I love how, you've had this person always saying, you're a medium. You're like, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. I can just, and knowing your personality, I think, oh yeah, that's just hilarious. I could totally see that happening. Do you find that you stepping out, like, has this been difficult for other people to accept, in your life, to accept you as a medium, to really understand your journey even into energy healing?
I mean, there's a wide range of reaction, right? And it's about our own comfort with the spirit world, our own understanding of what's going on. And so I have people in my life who are very accepting, and I have people in my life who completely understand it. And I have people in my life who are like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but okay, like I trust you. And then there's other people who are not at all okay with it and who don't understand it. And so something that I want to share is a message that I channeled a little while back, and what was shown to me is this, what I call or refer to as a spectrum. I call it my spiritual spectrum.
Yeah.
And what I find is that we have these interactions with people, and everybody on this planet is somewhere on that spectrum. And so people like you, Bonnie, would be to me far on the right, very spiritual, very connected, very, have this very deep relationship with spirit and the divine. And then people on the very left side of the spectrum for me are very, what I call human.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can be anywhere on that spectrum at any given time. And the way I look at it is when somebody comes to me and says, well, I don't believe in that. And I just now, after a lot of work, and accept and say, oh, okay, you're just on the human side of the spectrum. I don't say that to them, but it's reassuring to me that it's like, oh, okay, in this lifetime, you're just really human, and that's not your jam. That's not, your understanding. That's not your experience, and that's okay.
Oh, I love that. I love the way you've defined that, of just being on this spectrum. And the spectrum, again, according to our soul, every individual person, their soul's here to have certain experiences in this lifetime. There are some individuals here that are basically came to earth and they're in a position where they're never going to wake up. So they're just here to have that very human linear life experience. And then there are those of us who are, farther on the spectrum, where we're, more engaged. We're here, our souls are here to have or express a different experience in our life. And there's no right or wrong in this. I think this is really where, we get so judgmental of other people. And I say we as human beings get so judgmental of others in just not understanding that there's, each of us is here for a different kind of life experience. And we're not here to be friends with everyone. We're not here to have appease and fit into the conditioning of the world around us, but more importantly, we're here to be with those who we love, who are in our circle, who we are here to serve. And it's amazing how clearer it begins to be defined. And just your ability to say, oh, I see where you're at on the spectrum, it doesn't become so personalized then.
Exactly. And that whole fear of judgment can be released because there is no judgment anymore, because I understand that they're having a very human experience. They're not judging me for who I am and what I do and my connection with spirit. That's just their experience. And so it's allowed me to take ego out of it and really just have this kind of deeper understanding that we're all on different paths, and we know that. So when we can look at it that way, it's okay that we're not all on the same spot on the spectrum. That would be really boring anyway.
Wouldn't it? Yeah, I was just going to say that'd be so boring. And the other piece of it too is then, as you can kind of move into this place of deeper understanding and of the uniqueness of everyone's purpose or path, you begin to understand that some people are farther ahead on the path than what we are. And there are those who are, we'll say, behind or to follow, who haven't come into their awakening yet. And sometimes it's required. We have soul contracts that they actually need us to step forward in order for them to fulfill theirs, so that they can step into their light, their power, their spiritual understanding of themselves as well. So it's really how we hold in resistance of anything, but it's always like there are other people just waiting for us. Just like we can look at being mediums and again being afraid of doing readings for people of and out of fear of, not necessarily of getting it wrong. I mean, that's a big fear, that and something we can navigate and show up to, but that fear of what other people are going to say, what's going to happen, what judgments are going to be made of them. And that can be a real big barrier for people to be able to step forward into doing this work. But the thing is, there are so many individuals who hold soul contracts with that medium. We, made those sacred promises before we even got here. So our inability to step forward actually is kind of preventing other people from being able to receive what they need in this lifetime from us. We've agreed to be that person for them. So when we can do that, there's such freedom and liberation in that. It's like, I always think too, I'm always excited about my classes because, as people come together, I believe they've been in circle in other lifetimes together. We're meeting again, we're remembering something we already know at the core, we already know this stuff. And I just happen to be placed in this lifetime as helping people to remember what exists inside of them, right? But it's so beautiful to witness and see the people who come together and who have been waiting, and people waiting. There were people waiting for me. There are people that were waiting for you to step forward as well. And every medium, Yeah, it's so amazing. So do you have a specific story that really solidified your belief in the spirit world? So whether that's something, personally that you experienced, whether it's something you witnessed through a reading or session that you did that just kind of blew your socks off. What is it for you? What solidified it?
So I'm gonna use an example, and I'm gonna tell some stories if that's okay. It might take a while. I'm gonna tell two stories because I think this is one of the things that was really, obviously super impactful to me. And it wasn't necessarily, the validation through a reading. I've received those too, and that's always phenomenal. But when I kind of started my journey into, developing mediumship, looking into intuition, I took an online class. And one of the things in this, little thing, this little class, this little course module said to do is, if you really want to connect with your spirit team, if you want to hear from a loved one, and I was still grieving my parents at that time, still am. If you want to hear from a loved one, ask for a sign. And so I said, okay, very intentionally, okay, mom and dad, it's a dragonfly. When I need you or I need to know you're around, please send me a dragonfly. So I started to, follow my journey. I discovered bioenergy healing. All of these divine interventions happened, all of this divine timing to, have a workshop in a place where I was going to be for my kids' hockey tournament. I went to the workshop. I left in tears and I was like, okay, there's something here. I need this. There's something here. And ego kicked in. No, you don't. It's too much money. You have to go all the way to Vancouver. This is not going to work. Blah, blah, blah. So I was driving home from work one day and I said, okay, mom and dad, if this is something I'm meant to do, send me a dragonfly. And so as I'm driving, a huge swarm of dragonflies. Drive right through them. And ego says, it's like there's like a swamp right there. There's always dragonflies. Like that's just a coincidence. No big deal. So I brush it off. Go home, have supper with the family, sitting around the table, and one of my kids is, in the other area, kind of in the living room by the TV, and they said, Mom, why is there a dragonfly on the wall? And I was like, what? And so I looked, and sure enough, there's a dragonfly sitting on the wall below the TV, just hanging out there. We left it, never saw it again. It didn't, fall behind the TV. We didn't see it fly out. It just completely disappeared. Wow. So that was the first time that I was like, okay, this is like, there's something here. Spirit is able to send me messages. So fast forward several years, I've separated from my husband and I've connected with an acquaintance. And I felt really, really good about it. But again, ego is like, no, you're going to get hurt. This is not right. Even though my emotional body was like, no, this feels so right. My soul knew. So I said to mom and dad, I was at a high school rodeo with my kids. And I was just like going through all of these things in my head and all of these emotions are flowing. And I'm like, okay, mom and dad, if this is somebody that I'm supposed to be with, send me a dragonfly. And I was being a bit cheeky because it was like early May in northern Alberta. And I'm like, right. Yeah, good luck with that, guys.
Ask for the impossible. Exactly.
Yeah, send me a dragonfly. So I see a butterfly and I'm like, oh, that was close. That was close, but it's not a dragonfly. So of course, my oldest kid was like, Mom, we need to stay after this rodeo because they want me to get on some practice courses, whatever it was. And I was like, are you serious? Like, we have a 5-hour drive home. I just want to get out of here. But no, he had to help out. So I'm sitting around and they're putting younger kids on these horses, and my son is helping out, and the announcers are still announcing the rodeo. And the announcers always like to, chit chat and tell stories and whatever. And all of a sudden, of course, they're introducing this little cowboy, and they're like, this is so and so, and he's from a small town. I think it was Mayerthorpe. And they're like, and guess what Mayerthorpe has? The largest dragonfly in the world. And it was like, well played. Well played, Mom and Dad. Yeah, well played.
Oh my gosh, I love how spirit can orchestrate what seems like the most impossible scenario, right? We're like asking for those signs and they're like, "Oh no, we've got this."
Yeah, and I love that, and I think that's really an important message for people who are looking for those signs, is that it's not always, the dragonfly that you expect to see outside on a branch. It could be a photo. It could be, a figurine that you see in a store. It could be something that you're scrolling through your, news feed and it pops up. Spirit shows up in so many amazing and incredible ways.
Right. And that's just it. It's to be open to them. And of course, if the spirit doesn't get our attention right away with that sign, they're going to find ways to bring it in repetition so that we're finally going to get it. Right. And then when we do get it, I mean, this is the other piece. When it comes, it's like, okay, being able to say thank you for it, to recognize it and be grateful for it, because they've actually worked really hard to bring that and, that orchestration into our time space reality. So just acknowledging their efforts. And of course, once we catch on to the ways that they show up, they will continue to use those very ways in getting our attention and in helping us to move through our life. Did you still have dragonflies showing up lots from your mom and dad?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
They show up, in the most random ways, in the most beautiful ways, in the most intentional ways. I still ask for that, that guidance if I should do something. Sometimes I just need to know that they're around. And so they send me a dragonfly.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I think that, we look to, even though we can connect with the spirit world and we can do these readings in flow, because we're more of an observer to the spirit, more of an observer to what we're receiving, and we're not emotionally connected to it. So it's easier for us to be able to pick up what they're laying down, what they're demonstrating, what messages that they would like to offer. And yet for ourselves, it can be, because we're emotionally involved, we become a little bit, just again, ego can talk us out of it, but because we're emotionally involved, it can also not, maybe it doesn't work quite in the same way. It's not necessarily as fluid or as clear sometimes with our communication to our own loved ones. So looking at ways, developing these little signs and these symbols of what are going to help to reassure of your loved one's presence is very, very important. And I know we have a mix of people, attending this event, some who are mediums, who are looking in terms of help, support, understanding within their own capacities, as well as a lot of people who are coming in who are dealing with losses of loved ones, who are, looking to understand or interested in going to mediums or looking at ways to further that connection to the other side. So I really appreciate you sharing, your personal experience and how you connect with your mom and dad. It's not necessarily the same as what you might connect for your clients. Yeah. Wow. So beautiful. So beautiful. And so what was the point for you, Marcie? Like, what happened where you kind of said, oh my gosh, I need to be doing this. I need to be helping other people.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if there's a point in time. I guess my experience from my own loss, and not just my parents, but there's been plenty of loss in my life. And now, again, in retrospect and looking back, I can see where I struggled the most and when I struggled the most. And it was when I didn't have that relationship with spirit. And so mediumship and seeing mediums, going to mediums for readings was a very important on my journey of grief. It was very important in me being able to connect with my parents after they had passed. It was very healing for me and continues to be very, very healing for me. And so my experience and being able to gift that to other people like that is a gift in itself, is being
See,
able
I
to
love that. I
provide
love
that service.
that you reference it that way. It's not that we have a gift. This is a gift we get to give to other people.
Mhm.
Right. This is exactly, this is an ability. This is an innate talent. And I say innate because again, once we wake up to it, once we begin, whether we are someone who's been, a natural medium, born with these abilities, or someone who has been awakened to them, or this is a learned ability. Once that happens, it begins to develop and we become practiced at it. We have a skill now to use. And this is not a gift. This is a skill and a talent, and we get to use our skills and talents in service to others, and we get to give them the gift. That's,
Absolutely.
yeah.
The gift that we give them is the message from their loved one.
Yes.
That is the gift, and it's healing, and no matter what the words are, no matter what the message is, no matter what the specific discussion is, or the specific messages, or no matter what that is, there's so much healing in the work that we do. And that's why I do it, is to help other people on their journey.
Yeah, right. And that's really, and you get to see and witness, what transpires for a person, what happens in the healing energy behind the words, the healing energy, even in the session itself, this very, deep, light and embracing state of compassion that people are held in when, we're sitting in a session or doing a reading with them. And so it's beautiful to witness what transpires. And, they always seem to leave, with such relief. You can just see there's just such relief that takes place. It's almost like, and you've probably witnessed it too, they almost look a little bit different from the time that they came into the session to the time that they leave. Like you can just see that what was kind of holding them down, or what was, where their sadness was within their own heart, that just the relief in that almost, they just look lighter. They just look lighter.
It's a complete change in vibration. And
Yeah.
so having done the energy work first and becoming, a bioenergy healing practitioner, I would see that in those types of sessions as well. Is
Yes.
those people, and my clients would always say, oh, I feel so much lighter after, you move the energy. It's the same when you do a reading, is that you shift that, you allow their vibration to change and shift and level up. And so, yeah, they feel lighter, they look different, they're brighter, they have a sense of hope and peace and healing and all of the good things.
Right. Isn't that just it? And I mean, that sense of hope is priceless. That is priceless. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So what do you think has been your biggest challenge as a medium? What has been the thing that you've had to really kind of look to overcome, whether that was in terms of stepping forward, whether that was in terms of some of your own fears, or what's been your biggest challenge? For some people,
Yeah,
it's time. Some people, it's time. Sorry to interrupt you, that they have no time to
yeah.
do this work because they're so caught up in other responsibilities, right?
Well, and I think that's part of it for everybody. For me, it was definitely a lot of fear of, there was a fear of failure. But I think something that people don't talk about enough is a fear of success.
Yes.
What
Yes.
what
Agreed.
happens when I open this up? Like
Right.
what happens when I'm channeling divine energy? Like what? And so, there's those fears, there's the fear of judgment, there's, all of those things came into play. And so for me, it became very important to manage that ego, working with you to work on, the fears, the limiting beliefs, all of those things that, we've carried from probably many lifetimes and into
Lifetime.
this lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And releasing some of those things. I had to work through my own grief in order to be able to do this work.
Yeah.
Again, part of that journey. I can't help people when I haven't helped myself. I can't heal people when I haven't healed myself. So there were a lot of those, baby steps that I had to take and continue to take. It's still a journey. I will never claim to know everything, or that there's nothing to learn, because there's still plenty to learn and remember.
Right. I absolutely agree. I think every single day, I mean, this is the other piece of it. We're very human and we have these very real fears and insecurities and doubts and challenges that come up. And I love that you brought up the fear of success. Sometimes we even have fear of being a healer. We have fear of this, and we're afraid of hurting someone with this light and this power. And so we can sometimes retract or recoil in fear from that. But where we look at just saying, we need to be consistently tending to ourselves, not only in terms, I talked yesterday about the three basic spiritual needs, but also, we look at this other deeper healing inside of us, because if we are attending to ourselves, the greater of service we can be for others. Once we heal it, I always say, stay one day ahead of your clients. Like, you always want to be clearing the way and clearing the path, because once you're able to do that, then you're able to help them to be able to really make a significant healing impact for them as well. Once we have it out of our field, then it allows for other people to receive that exact same healing. It's so uncanny, the number of people where, have come into session. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just worked through that the other day. I know exactly
Right.
where you are.
Or need to work through that
All
today.
right,
I needed to
exactly.
hear
It's
that
like,
message just as much as you did.
exactly. I know what I've said sometimes in my client sessions. I'm like, man, I feel bad that I'm charging you because I'm getting so much guidance here, even for myself,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and that's all part of that. There has been a lot of fear. I think a lot of people are scared of the healing journey. And I talk
Yeah.
to my clients about this all the time because it sucks. I'm
Yeah.
not like, I pushed down my grief for so many years that when it started to come up, man,
Mhm.
that was shitty. Like,
Right.
that was awful. But it has to come up for it to come out. And that's the shift that we need. And that's the shift that we need to lead people into. And they have to be ready for it.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's just it. They can't even to do a reading. If someone's not ready for the messages from the other side, they're not going to have the same impact in terms of their own healing. It's energy. So it's not something that can really be fully received for them. But when they're ready to hear the message, when they're ready for that, then it's amazing what can transpire for them through even one word in a conversation that we will have with them sometimes. We do. Yeah, they definitely, there is, again, I think where that free will comes into place. Like, when the soul is ready, the soul is ready, right? And otherwise, if it's not, you can't change anybody else's mind. You can't convince them otherwise until they're in that position. And I know even from, all the trauma work that I've done, personally for myself, as well as the work I do with other people, that's what I always share with them, is that the medicine is in the wound. We look for all of these external ways to fix things, and we don't want to feel it, but we need to feel it. We need to feel it so that it can heal. And in that's where we find the medicine, and none of us, again, that's the ego. It's so uncomfortable. It's painful. And we don't want to get real, but we need to get real with it. And when we do, that's where, again, miracles begin to take place. But it's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
No, it's not easy. And I mean, there's other things involved in that whole process and in that journey, including, the change in relationships, right?
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
and I tell my clients this all the time too, when your vibration starts to increase, and it will when you're on the spiritual journey, the other people in your life, some of them may not rise to that. And
Mhm.
so you may need to accept that, or they may not be a part of your life, or they may not be
Right.
a part of your life in the same way. And that's okay. Again,
Yeah.
we're on the spectrum, and you might just be a little bit further ahead of them. But those are
Right.
things that we're scared of.
And say sometimes we zig and zag, from people, right? We're in kind of unison, we're moving along together through life, and all of a sudden something shifts or changes in an individual, where again the vibration changes, and all of a sudden we're not matching up anymore. Just even through the best intention, even though you might still care about the individual, just the universe basically redirects us. And then what can happen is, over time, as each individual is healing and doing their work, all of a sudden, boom, they can be realigned again and continue forward. But it does, I love that you brought that up too, Marcie, because relationships can get sticky. It can get difficult as your vibration raises and changes. as you start to believe a little bit differently. And I think, there too, this is where at least I have found for myself, I've really had to nurture my very close and important relationships. And again, when I say nurture, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my kids, my sisters, I've had to look at really nurturing that, because there has been such significant changes. I mean, I'm definitely not the person, that I used to be. I mean, it's still me, but it's the best of me that I've given myself permission to show up. It's this deeper essence of Bonnie now that sits, here in circle than what I ever allowed to show up before. And that was because of all the wounding and stuff there. But it does. I'm so grateful that you brought that into the equation. I would just ask, what advice do you have for mediums that are tuning in and listening in terms of moving forward in whether, learning more, developing, even if they've already taken the classes but are still afraid to go out and do this work? What advice do you have for them?
So much.
Right.
So much to say.
Perfect.
I mean, one is just do it. I mean, step into it, step into your power. The other thing is that, whether you've taken mediumship training or not, I mean, this is a life skill that I think should be taught in school.
Oh my God, I agree.
Like,
oh, can I just get a hallelujah right here right now?
And again, I tell my clients this all the time, and I, talk to my own family about this. If this is something that we can understand, if we can understand the spirit world, and again, I don't have all of the answers, and we all have different perspectives.
Yes.
But if we have some sort of understanding that the spirit world exists, that we feel the energy of the spirit world, that we feel the energy of other people, that we feel the energy of this room, that we feel that this exists and that this happens, what a different world this would be if I knew what if I knew what I know now when my kids were younger and they came home from school with a tummy ache. I would be like, who's that? Who are you carrying that you shouldn't be carrying? What energy did you pick up? Is there a spirit in your room? Is there something that doesn't, because we're so quick to be like, okay, well, here's some medicine, or maybe we need to take you to the doctor. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, of course it does, but we're not exploring all of these other things that could be going on, all of the energy that's around us, that's in our space, that we're that's attaching to us, that we're feeling, because we're empaths, we're such energy sensitives, we feel it all the time. So the more understanding, the more knowledge is power, the more knowledge we have about mediumship, the more powerful we are in that understanding and helping other people.
And other people just simply in our homes, the people we live with. I love that you say that too, Marcie, because I always look back to the man, I came into this pretty early, kind of early. My kids were in their adolescence by the time I was really starting to find the understanding. But even when I kind of moved into looking at them when they were younger, I thought, man, the number of temper tantrums and things that they were going through at that time, had I been empowered and understanding in this, how that would have altered and changed, right? And then it's like, what brings me peace in it is just simply knowing that, okay, it was exactly as it was meant to be, that they required some of those experiences as well to help them to open up and awaken. I think that's where too, even we as parents can let ourselves off the hook. It's our job to wake up our kids. So do we get it right? No, we don't ever get it all right. And I love, too, as you say, can't even begin to say that you know everything, because I certainly, I feel like be prepared, just to let go of everything, because there's so much more to be understood. And, we can just open to always be aware and open to constant learning, what else is there, what else, instead of locking our mind in that it is black and white. And of course, mediumship is not linear. It is not black and white.
No, not at all. And the other word I want to bring up is a word that you brought forward in your meditation, and that's trust. So you've been called to do this work. Trust that. Trust your guidance. Trust your guides. Trust your spirit team. Trust your medium that you're, already having readings from, or find one that you do trust, and follow that guidance, because your soul and your whole heart already know. It's your mind that's telling you not to. So follow your heart and trust.
Right. And trust that your loved ones are there. Like trust, even if you're not even looking to, move into doing this, this work, or you're looking to move into this work because we're talking about mediums right now, but trust that your loved ones want this for you too. And spirit, trust that they want you to succeed at this. They'll do everything they possibly can to support you in this. You're not alone. I heard a saying one time, if we could see the amount of helpers that we have around us in any given moment, we would never be afraid to do anything again. There's so much love, so much support. Oh my gosh, beautiful advice. All right, and so we're going to open up into the Q&A here in a moment. I just want to, for those attending who are dealing with a loss, Marcie, what do you have to offer?
So I had to write some things down because I knew that this was coming, and again, so many things. And the reason I'm bringing all of this forward is because I don't want anyone to do what I did. And what I did was I suppressed my grief. I pushed down every emotion. This is what I was taught to do.
Yeah.
And because I'm a strong, independent woman, I tried to do it by myself. And I don't want anyone else to have to do that.
I know. I know. I feel
so
that too.
I want to say that there's no single way to grieve. There's no correct way to grieve. There's no right, there's no wrong, and there's no end. It's a journey, and it's not meant to be traveled alone. And that doesn't mean, you have to find someone and that's going to be on your journey the whole way. That can shift and change. What you need on your journey can shift and change. If if writing heals you, write. If it's art, create. If it's music, sing. Everybody has different outlets and different ways of healing and moving that grief. But honor that. When you're having a bad day, honor it. It's okay to be in your grief. You don't need to push it aside. You can honor it and be in it. And the most important thing that I want to stress is that the only reason you're grieving is because there was love. A whole lot of love, because we don't grieve without love. And so, step into that, understand that, be that love, be grateful for that love that you experienced, even though your loved one is now on the other side in pure love and light.
I love that. I love it, because it's so true. The depth of what we grieve is an indication the depth of what we've loved. And that's something to be held. It truly is. Oh my gosh, so beautiful, Marcie. Thank you. All right, we're going to turn the attention to the chat here. Again, taking all of your questions, any advice, any direction you would like to have. I'm going to just go through and to look at everything here. Oh my gosh, hello everybody. I love everyone's coming from all over the place. I love that. Oh my gosh, so great, so great. Carolyn is asking, can you tell us more about the Akashic Records? What kind of information do you glean from that, Marcie?
Oh, the Akashic Records can be really fun. So the Akashic Records are basically, the library of your soul. And so people access the records in different ways. But I found that any way that you're accessing the records can be very effective. What I found from the readings that I've done and the readings that I've received, a lot of times those readings focus a lot on past life stuff. So it helps you to understand what's happened in your past lives, who you've been in a past life, sometimes what you've carried into this life. So it can explain some of those fears or some of those, connections, or why you're really interested in Rome. It's so random. Yeah, because you lived there, you were part of that. So that's some of the information that can come through on the Akashic Records. There's also, it's again opening up a different dimension. So there's still an opportunity for your spirit guides to come forward and your loved ones to bring messages as well.
And I love the Akashic. I think there's so much information to be gleaned from there. And so I do again open up and teach about the Akashic record in level 3 of my program. We kind of move in, as Marcie said, there's many different ways to access the records. And as we go into that, so we can also, like, I always see this. I think the Harry Potter movie did it the best. When if you're familiar with the movie, they walk into this big library and there's all these floating snow globes everywhere. And there's just like thousands and thousands and thousands of snow globes, and they're searching this library for specific information that's going to help them in that present moment, right? And that's really what the Akashic offers for us. We can also access information in terms of what is future oriented as well. And so there can be information gleaned in terms of, and future oriented has to do more about the soul's journey. So it's not from an ego base, but really is the evolution of the soul. And so there can be information that can sometimes come forward in there. And I think too, in opening up the Akashic, sorry, that sometimes just hearing that you loved Rome can actually help to release any karma that you might have from that lifetime. Like, healing can just happen just simply with the awareness to it.
Absolutely. And I find too, so many people, and this is something that, I would probably recommend for a lot of people who are stepping into mediumship. A lot of times we have a witch wound from a previous lifetime
Right.
where we were burned at the stake or hung for the work that we did. This isn't the first time, and this isn't the first lifetime we
No,
were doing this work. And so sometimes we
exactly.
need that type of reading to resolve some of that, like you said, that karma.
Yeah. And we can even extract from the Akashic records some of our talents and abilities from our most successful lifetimes of being a medium. So we can extract it and bring it into this lifetime now to be able to help and support our journey in doing this work too. So it's like opening up, like I said, this hall where there's like all of these thousands upon thousands of snow globes where all things are possible. I love that. I love that question. From Becky, she says, could you please share insight regarding the spirit of newborns or babies from miscarriages, abortions, or stillborn? Marcie, I'll let you begin with this one.
Well, I mean, there's a purpose, there's a reason, there's some sort of soul contract for every spirit, every being that comes into being, that comes into this human form. And so whether that that soul is here for a day or an hour or 100 years, there's a soul contract, and our souls choose that that situation. We choose our family. And so the way I look at it is that there's something there to be learned, there's something there to be understood, maybe there's something there to be healed. Everything happens for a reason, and I know that that sounds really cheesy, but it happened for a reason.
Absolutely. And sometimes those little ones coming in like that in those scenarios are in service to the mom or in service to the parents and helping, to awaken them as well. They can serve, even though we see it as an infinitely, or not even infinitely, we see it even infants in terms of just having such a short time of life experience. They are fulfilling their contract. That's what that soul came in to do, no matter if it was, as Marcie said, for a few hours or a few weeks. It is, I mean, it's one of the biggest heartbreaks for sure, but it's also, I'm going to say, one of the most impactful because of the purpose that it holds. I've also seen, and again, I've seen it through my readings, not that, where those spirit babies will come through. And sometimes it's the timing of the miscarriage. So this isn't anything that, the mom has done wrong, that her physical body, a lot of women believe their bodies let them down. They're having trouble, had trouble carrying. But yet actually what that comes into is a change of the soul contract, which means sometimes these infants were going to come in, they were ready to come and they were conceived, they were being born, even going through the birthing process, or even those, whatever the stage of their death is. but where they're coming in and something changes in their soul contract, whether it's the dynamics of something going on within the choice right now that are happening for the parents. There may be an opportunity where it's going to be more serving for them to wait and come, you know, in a few months or in a few years. Very often the babies that are lost are babies that are born to those parents at a different time. So even though we feel like we've lost these children actually come to us just at a more divine timing in accordance to what it is that their soul is looking to understand, or what wisdom it's looking to receive based on the timing of when they're coming in instead. So, you know, it can be there, so many variables. And again, you know, we can't even begin to know all of the reasons. There are such high level agreements and contracts in place. We are not privy to even a tenth of what is going on for the soul. We think we know so much about what's happening for, you know, our own lives and based on the Akashic and all these things, but we only know about a tenth of what it is. I always say, be prepared to not know, because if you can be prepared to not know, you open yourself up to greater awareness and understanding, right? We never want to lock in, but it's just amazing the number of things that can happen. All right. So again, your questions, you've got me and Marcie here. We are at your service. Awesome. Shelby's saying, so amazing. As Marcie was talking about the dragonfly story, she asked her spirit guides to show her a baby if this is where she's supposed to be. And wow. So I just, from your comments, you've put it out there now to see a baby. And I love that you're putting that into place for yourself, Shelby. That's so wonderful. Oh my gosh. So from Jen coming in, my 10-year-old daughter is here listening again. Hello. And she's very intrigued by the discussion. Her dad had suddenly passed away from an overdose back in September, and she wants to know why he didn't cross over or go to the light as soon as he died. He stuck around her for a long time and she could see him. So I know. I actually get that he did cross over. So what happens very often is that spirit has many helpers. So please know that your dad was not alone, even in his overdose, that he had spirit helpers there. He had angels that were by his side. He had loved ones that were there to greet him, and that is available for every single person. No one dies alone. And so what happens is that the vast majority of spirits cross over immediately. I think it's one of those myths that are out there that sometimes the spirit gets lost or they can't make their transition. That has to do with some free will stuff and what they're choosing to do at that time of death. And it doesn't have to do anything about whether or not someone gets to go to heaven or not. And so here, what happens very often are those spirits cross over almost instantly. It doesn't take them time, sometimes instantly. Now, again, might be in a moment. It might be a day or two before they're able to fully accept and move into it. It's different for everybody, and there's so many reasons why. But to ease your mind, every single spirit goes so quickly to the other side. And then what happens is they're actually reaching back from heaven. So they're already being cared for. They're already have their loved ones. They have their angels helping them, and they're now reaching back. They're showing up, and your dad was coming there to let you know that he was with you and that he loved you. It wasn't that he hadn't crossed. Okay. At least that's what I'm picking up, Marcie. Is that what you're picking up on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that's coming through for me is that there's some healing. So, maybe he was able to reach back for a little while. And if you haven't seen him, since or in the meantime, he has some healing to do. I have full body goosebumps.
Yes.
He has some healing to do on the other side as well. And so sometimes, spirit needs to do that. They need to reflect, they need to heal, they need to, forgive. There's things that they need to do as well, that they need to learn to help their soul grow and evolve for their next lifetime, right? So every time that we do this, it's like we are passing a grade in school. So he might have to do a bit of reflection and healing and relearning before he gets to go to the next grade. And so sometimes when spirit isn't available, that's what they're doing, and that's where they are.
Yeah, and I spoke about that rest period that takes place where they go through that healing the other night. We talked, about that. So that's exactly to bring that up again and just knowing that right now he's not available. You're not seeing him because he is, as Marcie said, going through all of these different healing cycles right now. But in those first few days, so if you were seeing him, it wasn't that he didn't cross over, sweetie. He absolutely had. It's just he was showing up in his heavenly state for himself at that time. So yeah, I think it's so beautiful that he showed up. And again, trust, he loves you, and he's gonna show up for you some more, and he'll be healed then. So he'll be there to have some fun with you. So great. Oh my gosh. Eleanor says too, she's got the goosebumps going as well. They've been piling up throughout our time tonight. So Val says, when a scene, a thought, or a phrase comes through that concerns death, possibly a coming up death or tragedy, how do you address this in your readings if that happens?
I'm deferring to you, Bonnie, because you taught me very well to have boundaries, and that's one of my boundaries. I've never seen an upcoming death. I've never seen a death scene in my readings. So this is not my forte.
That's fine, Marcie. So thank you with this. And so again, sometimes we are privy. I always say we as mediums, there's so much we can be so glad that we get to be a part of. We're so privy to some of these beautiful things of the healing that takes place. There's also some things that we wish we didn't know. There's some things we wish we didn't see. And when those things come up, it's not, I'm never, and that's what I always say to every single person, they're not going to get, there's no gloom and doom in the session with me, which means they're not going to get bad news. That's a part of the boundary that I have with spirit. I'm not giving them bad news. I'm not here to make their journey worse. I'm here to make their journey better. I don't want to add to their suffering. I want to help alleviate the suffering. So when those things are shown to me, there's two things that happen. One, I ask the spirit that's revealing it to me, is this information that this person needs to know? Sometimes the spirit world shows us something to give us some inside story of something that is playing out so that we can maybe look at read, really kind of moving in a maybe a gentler way, and there can be even in how we're delivering the message, or even the direction they would like to take the reading. So when I've had that happen, there's been times where I've said to spirit, okay, I might see that this person has a tragedy or something coming up, and I'll say, is this something that they need to know at this time? And I get a no. But please tell them to reach out to so if someone is going to die, so if I get that I'm just going to use this as an example, that someone's mom is going to die, and spirit is showing me that there's going to be a loss coming up for this person, and they're saying, don't tell her that, but you need to know that this is coming up. She needs to be really held and nurtured. And they might even guide me to talk a little bit about the spirit world, or do some teaching even in that moment, whatever kind of comes up. So, but what they will say is, they'll say, encourage her to reconcile with her mom. Encourage her. I need her to reach out to her mom, and even though it's been years, or even though things are really hard, she needs to reach out to her mom. So it's like, mom's going to die. So this becomes a really important message that I know I have to really land with the sitter. I have to really encourage them, say, you know what, your dad is showing me that you really need to reach out to your mom. That things have been difficult and hard between the two of you. And he's showing me you're like two peas in the pod. You're very similar. But you do need to connect with her. He's encouraging you to make a phone call. And then even I've offered it, the sitter's going, yeah, I've been thinking about my mom a lot lately. Well, dad's really encouraging you to reach out. If we happen to see, I've had it also as well, where someone has a terminal illness, and they're not aware of the terminal illness yet. And their loved one is saying, like, they need to get to the doctor. They've got a terminal illness. That's not my job. I am not a doctor. I do not diagnose. I do not prescribe. I do not anything. So what I do in those moments is I ask spirit, okay, so what is required here? And so encourage them to go to the doctor. All right, well, your dad is saying you really need to go to the doctor. There are some health concerns here that he wants to bring to your attention, and he's really encouraging you to go to a doctor. And the sitter turns around and says, yeah, I haven't been feeling all that well. I've been thinking about making an appointment. Well, your dad's saying, make the appointment. Right? So I don't get into the specifics around any of it. What I do is try to steer them through the guidance to begin to enact or to make some necessary changes, even to their diet, even to, it's amazing how the advice Spirit gives, even in terms of nutrition and diet changes and recommendations. Everything is a recommendation, but it's always with the anecdote where, and please seek the advice of your doctor. Please seek the advice of your doctor. He'll be able, this is what your dad's showing me, but please seek the advice of your doctor. Right. So I never, that's not my job. That's not my job. My job is not, as I said, to diagnose or prescribe or anything, but to share guidance in how to help them find the help that they need, as well as to help to bring that healing to whatever might be suppressed that's caused the manifestation of the illness. And as far as coming in those upcoming tragedies, this is, we want to, again, a Spirit always helps me to steer them towards reconciliation so that they can have these conversations, because so many people that come to me after the death of a loved one is because there has been a discord in the relationship. Maybe the last thing they did with their loved one was fight, and they hold so much guilt, they hold so much remorse. And so even, when there's been a feud or something that's gone on over time, it can make it that much harder for the individual to move through their grieving process when they're holding such heavy grief and guilt combined with the grief. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. Okay. Such a good one. Oh my gosh. Faith is saying, can you be more specific about the aborted spirit? I can. So here too, going back to this faith, even though we can't understand it, when we look at the act of abortion, we look at this as being a decision that we're making, and we're making the decision to abort the fetus. But what it is we are actually being guided to, as I shared the other night, even when we looked with our pets, when we feel such guilt as a result of, taking them to the vet and for the euthanization and putting them to sleep, we feel so much guilt, but where the pet was actually asking for help in the release. Even when it comes to abortion, that spirit, you're being guided. You're being guided for two things. One, it's a part of an experience that your soul is here to go through. It's looking to have, and we again can't understand this from the high level agreements that are there, but it does want the experience of what that is like, the grief, the suffering, the hardship of the decision. But ultimately, in the decision itself, the whole decision is because we were actually being asked to do the abortion. We were being asked to end the pregnancy because that spirit needed help. Just like we look at, and it's always, you don't even want to get me started when I think about the number of people who are suffering in hospital beds, the number of people that are being, I think it's so cruel in prolonging their suffering, who want nothing more than to help to be released from their body because they can't, they just are asking. And we have such compassion for our animals. We don't have that same compassion for those who are very ill. That just breaks my heart. And again, when we look at it, the asking of the spirit, when they're in cases of an abortion, the spirit was asking, it just needed some help. It needed some help. And that spirit, understand, was looking for the experience of being aborted. So just as our soul was looking through the experience of being the one to make the decision for the abortion, the other one, because we've got these contracts with each other at this high level, that little spirit was looking at its soul level for the experience of having been aborted. We can't always understand it, but it blows my mind at the intricacies of what plays on at that level. Marcie, do you have anything to share about that in terms of an aborted spirit?
No, but there's a question from Amanda that I think has some same answers, I guess, in terms of a decision to be made by the family. So I'm not sure that was before that question. So
Yeah, I'm kind of scrolling here through all of them real quick, so I can go back up and look here too. Um, why am I not seeing her question? Oh, there we go. I found it. Oh, Amanda, absolutely. This is the exact same scenario as well. So again, as I said, not only do we have people who are not being blessed with the relief and help when they need it through some of their terminal illnesses and suffering, and especially I'm talking about some of the extreme suffering that goes on, that even in times when an individual maybe has been in an accident, if they're in a coma, they're on life support, the family's decision to do that, as grueling, as hard as what it is also the asking of that spirit, that's in that spirit, because of being on life support. Again, we can look at the interference, so to speak, of even though we give them medicine or drugs in order to alleviate pain and symptoms, that can also block the spirit from being able to fully leave the body. So it kind of complicates the release. And so anytime that release is complicated in that way, the spirit is asking. So when someone makes the decision to to end life support, as grueling as it is indeed that spirit asking for that release as well. And just as I said, the same thing. It's not only, we have these soul contracts where the family that's there and making the decision is here to go through that experience, and of course the spirit that is leaving is looking to have that exact experience as well. This is where, no matter the death, the way someone dies, no matter what it is, just knowing that the soul chooses how it goes, how, what the exit is like. We don't decide that on an ego level whatsoever. That's not our human mind that decides, oh, I'm going to, I'm going to die in my sleep. No, that's the soul wanted the experience of just the death in the sleep, or the heart attack, or a tragic accident, or even being murdered. As much as we can't understand that from our egoic mind, it is also in understanding that that was the exact death experience that soul was looking to have, in its vastness of history, and adding to the Akashic record, it was looking for that experience too. So yes, absolutely. And again, that living with the regret or the burdens that come with it, it is about helping to make peace, and knowing that, their loved one wouldn't have wanted the suffering, wouldn't have wanted to prolong their suffering either. So not just as the individual suffering, but the family suffering. That's another reason why Spirit says, you know what, you need to let me go, so that we can all heal, and we can all be at peace here. Yeah. Oh my gosh, those are some of the hardest things that happen. I'm sorry I missed your question earlier as we were going through. All right, so we have still, yeah, I've just looked at the time. We still have time to read. All right, so Helen is asking, 10 years after my mother passed, I had a very difficult grieving process. I had a conversation, and it finally felt healed, and there was some lightness around it. 3 weeks after my husband passed, his passing was very unexpected and sudden. For several days prior to my husband's passing, I received many messages, but none of them were specifically linked. I remember speaking to my sister-in-law that if anything was to happen to my husband, I'd be able to lean and walk through it. There were many signs and messages, and now I'm able to see leading up to this. I feel that Spirit was communicating very strongly. Oh my gosh. So Helen, I just have to honor, just like with Marcie and so many people on the call, and having such big losses, which almost are back to back. It's almost unfathomable in terms of what that does to us as individuals. And of course, my condolences to everyone who is going through those experiences. Here too, even though they may not seem linked, there are definitely indications, so to speak, that Spirit begins to communicate well before their crossing. I can, as an example, use, the death of my dad. It was almost like the 2 weeks before my dad died. he was probably the happiest, the most engaged, the most present with us. Like when we look back at some of the conversations we had and some of the fun that we had in the last 2 weeks, it was like the happiest, most joyful that had ever experienced my dad. And then he was gone. And that happens lots of time. It's almost like there is an unconscious knowing for the individual that their time is coming. They don't know it consciously. They can't, none of us know the date and time. It's a very unconscious knowing. And so there's a lot of synchronicities, a lot of things that play out and happen prior to someone's death that start to show, and we can reflect later where we can say, oh my gosh, I actually was being shown. I actually, even the message you received from your sister, it's like there was an unconscious knowing. She just needed you to know that you could lean on her. She just needed to know if anything happened, she was there for you. That was a preempted in terms of awareness to what was coming, whether she realized it was coming or not. So there can be many things, as you say, even they're random and they don't even seem to be linked. That can absolutely be linked for sure. Marcie, anything you'd like to add on that?
No, I think you covered that all.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So going through again, questions. Lynn is asking intervention to assist a soul to be released. I'm just a little confused by your question, Lynn. Can you give a little bit more context there for us in terms of what you mean by intervention? Are you saying in terms of the decision in life support? If that's what, the decision, is that what you're referencing to? Just if we could have a little bit more on that, that would be wonderful. While you're doing that, I'm just going to scroll up again here and just take a look through the questions. Oh, Lynn is saying when someone's on a coma or life support. Yeah, it would be considered divine intervention. Where we're being guided, where spirit is guiding, spirit is asking. It's not us from an ego making the decision whether someone has the right to live or die, what's right for the person, but something that comes that's very divinely orchestrated, that's in that divine intervention. Sometimes, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, and it is to help to assist the soul to be released. And what happens very often with patients who are in a coma, individuals who have Alzheimer's, there also is, I'm going to say, even in, oh, I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's so bad that I've lost it. Dementia. There we go. So even in those cases, what's happening is the spirit is just tethered to the body, which means it's like on a string. And those individuals are actually hanging out on the other side a lot. They're actually engaging with their loved ones. They're already in celebration. They're already living life on the other side. That's why they're not available to us here, because their spirit is already hanging out over there. But the spirit is still tethered, which means there is like an umbilical cord or an etheric string that is still holding the spirit to the body. And so that's why they haven't officially, crossed, or they haven't had their death experience, because there's still something in that human experience that the soul is looking to have yet. So it hasn't quite let go yet. But then there are those times where, again, you're dealing in the medical world where they're making medically advised recommendations. And even those medically advised recommendations based on their skill and expertise are a part of the guidance as well. Yeah, yeah. Leanna is asking, why does spirit show us these accidents or knowledge of our loved ones passing if we can't do anything to help them? Shall I go, Marcie?
Well, what's coming to me is for the experience.
Mhm.
So whatever that is, one of the things that happened to me on this journey was that I actually channeled someone dying, and I didn't know what was going on until I put all of the pieces together. And
Yeah.
so those things happen to us to experience them again for whatever reason, whether it was because that soul contract with that person was deeper than I thought it was, whether, it was a soul understanding that was part of my educational journey to be, to experience that and understand it. Spirit shows us those things for any myriad of reasons, for that experience.
Yeah, and I agree. So sometimes it's for us as the medium so that we can even grow. We bring up that trustworthy worth again, right? Where we've seen something and then something plays out and happens, is we're not meant to intervene. But we had awareness to it, and it's helping us to trust in what we're receiving. So that's part of what the experience is for. And then for those things that we know that we wish we didn't know, those are the things where that's a part of helping us to come to terms with it first. So I know, for instance, where I've had awareness to certain family members that were going to be making their crossing, where their time was coming, and where it hit me very hard in having, like, I hated knowing this. And I felt like I was, lying to everybody around me in my family because I knew something that they didn't. But the reason I was showed that, the reason I was given the information first, was so that I could begin processing my own grief, that I could begin dealing with it and starting my healing journey, so that when the time came, I was farther ahead and had moved through some of the lower vibrational aspects of that grief consciousness, so that I could be there for the people that needed when they needed me. So sometimes we're given this information so that we can prepare ourselves. It's a really good question, Leanna. Really good question. And again, even when I'm giving those, I still offer prayer. I still invoke angels. I still ask for, that soul to, if there's any opportunity for that soul to have a different outcome, that be made available to. Like I pray for that, and I pray for it so that I feel like, because sometimes there's nothing I can do here. The only thing I can do is pray. And so I fall into prayer in those instances, and I pray for those who are intimately involved in this. And I pray, for maybe that soul to maybe look not only in having an ease of their transition, but also if there's an opportunity for this to be redirected, that maybe, that be made available for them too. I don't have power to change it. I just like to pray for it, because it helps me to feel better and find some peace in it too. And anytime I feel helpless, and anytime I feel like I can't intervene, or I can't do something, I fall into prayer. Prayer is the only gift that I can offer in that moment. It's the only way I can help. Yeah. Okay. So from Carolyn says, any advice, Marcie, on how I can help a friend who just lost both parents and is still pretty young? She's in her 40s. She has psychic abilities and consults with mediums, and I'm a medium as well. Her grief is so intense, understandably. What advice do you have on how she can help her friend?
Honestly, I mean, part of it is being there, right? Not just as a medium, but as a friend, and reaching in. And, I know in my experience, I had a lot of friends checking in and between the death and the funeral. And once the funeral was over, I didn't hear from anyone. And not to, that's what we all do. I'm not, shaming them or anything like that. But that consistent checking in is one of the things that is so important. And it's about, we talk a lot about compassionate communities, and part of that is that reaching in and not waiting for somebody to reach out, because it's so hard for us to do. So really reaching in. The other thing that I would, talk about when she's ready is to release the grief. And this is something that I really struggled with, because somehow I felt like if I let go of that grief, if I let go of that pain, that I was letting go of mom and dad. And it was really hard to disconnect the two. And so that's something else that I would recommend, is when she's ready, is to work through those things, is to, again, release that grief without releasing the love. Hang on to the love. It's going to stay there forever. It's going to fill your heart for, for as long as you're here as well. So cherish that, but let go of that grief. That's the painful, that's the heavy, that's the sticky. Being able to process that, honor it, and release it, and being, expect the unexpected. Grief, as we said, is a crazy journey. And sometimes, we expect the birthday to be hard, but for me, my mom passed away a few days before Christmas. I didn't shed a tear on Christmas. I barely got out of bed on New Year's Day because she was always the first one to phone me. So some of those, we expect some of those things, but we need to expect the unexpected. So again, checking in, reaching in, aside from the times that we know are going to be tough.
I love the way you put that, reaching in. I think this is where we, as a society get it all wrong, and we do it out of love and sympathy and compassion for people, and always say, please, if you need anything, let me know. Guess what? The person who's grieving doesn't have it within them to reach out. So this is where, again, as Marcie said, being able to reach in becomes an important part of their recovery process as well. And in releasing that grief, and here too, as I explained the other night, grief sits as a barrier between us and our loved ones. So we want to make sure that we're doing the healing work. We want to release the grief, because when we do, it can actually allows them to be closer to us. That's what we're seeking the whole time. But again, this isn't about rushing the grieving process. I know a lot of people who have suppressed their grief and have been grieving for 30, 40 years simply because, and what I'm saying, we don't ever get over a loss, but I'm saying deep, raw grief where they've really been in a state of just of this cycle of grief. And again, just being able to let go of some of the grieving, and allows them to not only have relief, but allows for the spirit to come even closer. And that's really, we need people reaching in. We truly, truly do. I love that you said exactly like that. I feel like you and I are like speak the same words, Marcie. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. I love that. Such great advice. Such great advice. Okay. So Tasha says, what about helping others who are going through their personal death, such as a part of them is dying so they can ascend to the next level? I've noticed a lot of people that are currently going or through this currently and are struggling with it. Okay.
Yeah, I think that that's part of the journey. That's part of the shift on the spectrum, is we do need to release and grieve the human that we once were, and that we're not anymore on this journey. And we have to accept that. And we have to, again, honor that grief like any other loss. And, it's not about pushing it aside or, pushing it down. It's about honoring it and understanding it, that it's okay. It's okay to grieve who you once were. It's okay to grieve a relationship. It's okay to grieve a job. We don't talk about that enough. There's more things that we can grieve and that we do grieve without realizing it sometimes, aside from the loss of a loved one. And transformation is one of those things.
And I think, here too, Tasha, if you know someone who is, terminally ill, instead, I think where we fault sometimes is, one, we don't know what to say to them. And two, we maybe can sometimes say the wrong things, like, it's going to be okay, just stay strong. We want to be the encourager and the motivator. And what I recommend in these situations is instead begin to tell the person how much they mean to you, how grateful you are for having had the opportunity to be their friend, their spouse, their lover, whatever, or a relationship that you have. Just begin to move into a place of appreciation and just let them know, how deeply impacted that you are in losing them. Don't hide your grief from them. This almost almost gives a subliminal message that maybe you're not really getting it. That's why many people say you don't understand. And they say you don't, because you can't understand in terms of what they're dealing with in their own emotional turmoil and acceptance of their own mortality, but also in terms of we don't, and that's just it, is because we're not taking time to understand. But so when we are saying, you know what, I just need you to know that you are a very special person in my life, that I've loved you so very much. I have the fondest memories of you, and talk about the good, talk about what you love and appreciate about them, and don't talk about their diagnoses, don't talk about their symptoms, don't really truly, this sounds really uncaring, but don't ask them how they feel. Everybody else ask them how they feel. Ask them about and how they feel physically within their symptoms. Get to the heart of the matter. Just say, what are you most grateful for in your life? Ask them that question because it helps them to kind of move into a place of reflection and also in helping them to come to terms with things as well. Okay. So just depending again, as they're dying. And again, we go through many deaths, like Marcie said, there's many, many death experiences that we have, and it's all for that greater evolution and ascension. But when dealing with it, I think again, sometimes we don't even say anything. Like even after someone loses, like Marcie said, like everybody was there immediately at the funeral, and then all of a sudden everybody goes on with their own life, and it's almost gives the impression that a person forgot. And then maybe you run into that individual in the grocery store and they avoid you completely, or you don't even you feel afraid to speak the person's name. Don't be afraid, and to go, to talk to the person and say, oh my gosh, I remember, and mention the person's name. Like, talk about the person who's died, mention their name because it meant something to that person. And so when we avoid it, we almost are giving the impression that we actually don't care. We care, but we're just not expressing it very healthfully. Okay, so such a good question. Katie, we have one more question here, and then we'll quickly do this one before we wrap up. Katie says, can you speak more about bringing these teachings to schools? Right? Oh my gosh. Meditation, spiritual awareness. Oh my gosh. Right,
What a
Marcie?
different world it would be, what a different school system it would be, what a different society it would be. And if that's not going to happen immediately, or in our lifetime, then do what we can at home, do what we can with our circles, with our families, with our friends, to bring this awareness to them, to an understanding of the energy that surrounds us, to the energy that is us, and the energy that we feel.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think it would be just so powerful. And I think for me, in being able to bring these teachings into schools would really provide a safe place for everyone to feel seen, heard, understood in a way that maybe, isn't available to them right now. I think it would be very beneficial. And I also believe that, because I'm such an advocate, I live my life this way. Everything for me is, I go within first. So I believe that the whole holistic triangle is wrong. We have it focused from an egonic kind of point of view, where we say the mind, spirit, and the body, or sorry, mind, body, spirit. And I believe it should be spirit, because spirit first in anything is going to allow the mind to be healthy. It's going to feed. So a healthy spirit creates a healthy mindset. A healthy mindset feeds the body. It becomes easier. Again, the body manifests a lot of disease and a lot of illnesses as a result of the belief systems, the suppression of our pain and suffering. But what the pain and suffering is representative of is a loss of connection to our own spirit. So having this in the school, I truly believe that even, kids in education would be more successful because they are nurtured from the inside out. And I think that's where the holistic triangle is all wrong. All right. Well, Marcie, oh my gosh, I could keep going in conversation with you. Thank you so much for being here tonight and for sharing your perspective and really helping to guide in the conversation tonight. Guide everyone who's here and through your wisdom, what you've gleaned through your experiences. And I just want to thank you for being who you are, and thank you so much for all the love and the light that you bring into so many people's lives, including mine. All right, everyone. Again, good night. I'll see you here tomorrow, same time, same place with our next guest. Have a great evening. Bye-bye for now.